This happened last July, during one of those freak heat waves that hit the Midwest. My friend Nate has a family cabin out by Lake Marlow in Wisconsin. Quiet, isolated, barely enough cell service to check texts, and surrounded by woods thick enough to block out most of the sun. We planned this weekend for a while, just four of us. Me, Nate, our friend Lacey, and her boyfriend Mark. The goal was simple: unplug, grill food, swim during the day, and drink by the fire at night. No drama, no work emails, just chilling at the lake. The first day was everything we hoped for. Clear skies, water warm enough to float in, and barely another soul in sight. There were a few other cabins around the lake, but we didn't see anyone the whole day. By evening, we had a bonfire going, music playing low from Nate's Bluetooth speaker, and beers in hand. I remember feeling totally relaxed, like the real world was miles away. Sometime after midnight, we all started getting tired, but Nate and I decided to sit out a little longer while Lacey and Mark went to bed. We were just finishing our last drinks when Nate paused mid-sentence and said, "You hear that?" At first, I didn't. But then, yeah, I heard it too. Footsteps. Not loud, but definitely there. On gravel, crunching slowly, coming from the side of the cabin that faced the woods. We both went quiet, staring in the direction of the sound, but the firelight didn't reach that far. It was just black past the tree line. "Probably an animal," I said, but my voice sounded unsure. Nate stood up, grabbed the flashlight off the stump behind him, and aimed it toward the trees. Nothing, just branches swaying in the breeze. But the footsteps, if that's even what they were, stopped the moment he turned on the light. We both stood there for a while, waiting, listening. After a few minutes of silence, we kind of laughed it off. Probably just raccoons or a deer. We doused the fire, locked up, and went inside. That night, I had the worst sleep I've had in years. Not because of what happened outside. I didn't even think much about that. But because I kept hearing this weird creaking sound under my window, like someone shifting their weight on the wooden deck. I got up once to check, but when I peeked through the curtain, there was nothing. Just the lake and the moon. The next morning, Nate looked rough. "Dude," he said while making coffee, "I swear someone walked past my window at like 3 a.m. I stared at him for a second. Mine too. Lacey and Mark slept like rocks and didn't notice anything. But Nate and I were now both feeling off. Still, we figured it was nerves, too many drinks, or maybe we freaked ourselves out the night before. Around noon, while we were out on the dock, Mark pointed something out on the opposite shore. "Is that a person?" We all looked. Sure enough, across the lake, just barely visible between the trees, was someone standing at the edge of the water. Alone. Not fishing. Not swimming. Just standing, facing our direction. He, or whoever it was too far to make out clearly. No movement. No wave. Just there. We watched for a minute. Then someone made a joke to break the tension and we moved on. But when we looked back a few minutes later, the person was gone. Later that day, we drove into town to get more beer and charcoal. When we got back to the cabin, something was off. I noticed it first. My duffel bag, which I'd left zipped on my bed, was open. Stuff inside looked like it had been moved around. Nate checked his bag too. Same deal. Nothing stolen. Just touched. Mark thought maybe a raccoon had gotten in somehow, but the cabin was locked when we left. Windows shut. That night, none of us really relaxed. We didn't even light a fire. We stayed inside, played cards, kept the doors locked, but we still heard noises. Every couple hours. Crunching, creaking, a thump on the deck. We peeked out once and swore we saw something move near the tree line. It ducked out of view too fast for us to be sure. Nate wanted to confront whoever it was, but I convinced him not to. We had no idea who we were dealing with. No phone service, and we weren't armed. That final night, I barely slept at all. At 4:23 a.m., I remembered because I checked the time. I woke up to the softest knock on the window beside my bed. Not loud, just two short taps, like someone gently using their knuckles. I froze. My heart slammed so hard I thought I was gonna be sick. I lay still for what felt like forever. Eventually, I got the nerve to peek out through the edge of the curtain. There was nothing, but drawn on the glass in what looked like condensation was a smiley face. Two dots, a curved line. It hadn't been there earlier, and it was on the outside. I didn't sleep at all after that. By morning, we packed up and left. Didn't even clean the place up properly. Just threw stuff into bags and left. Nate told his parents about it, and they changed the locks and installed cameras. A few days later, he texted me a screenshot from one of the motion detectors. Just a blurry figure standing on the deck at 2:38 a.m. the night we left. Face turned toward the window. No shirt, just jeans. We still don't know who it was, but we're never going back there again. This happened to me and my cousin Tyler 2 summers ago in late August. I was 17, and he had just turned 19. We were camping at a state park in northern Michigan, a trip we'd been talking about all summer. It was supposed to be a chill weekend. Just the two of us, a small tent, some trail snacks, and a bunch of dumb stories told over a campfire. We picked this park specifically because it was remote. Not a lot of tourists, just thick trees, a winding lake, and miles of silence. Perfect place to disconnect. We got to the campground late Friday afternoon, checked in at the ranger station, grabbed our map, then drove about 15 minutes into the woods to reach our site. It was pretty deep in, no other campers in sight, just us. We spent that first evening doing normal stuff. Set up the tent, gathered wood, cooked over the fire. Nothing weird, nothing off. It wasn't until late, probably after 1 a.m., that we heard something. It started with this soft shuffling sound in the brush behind our tent. At first I thought it was just an animal, maybe a deer. Tyler whispered, "You hear that?" I nodded. The sound circled slowly around the tent, like someone walking in a wide loop, dragging their feet through the dry leaves. But every time we spoke or made a sound, the shuffling stopped. We waited, holding our breath. Then, it would start again. At some point, Tyler unzipped the tent and pointed his flashlight outside. Nothing. Just trees and empty trail. We figured it had to be an animal and eventually forced ourselves to sleep. Next morning, we woke up to find boot prints around the tent. Not paw prints, not hooves. Actual boot prints. Big ones. Heavy tread. Like work boots, they circled the tent. Twice. No other prints leading toward or away from the path. Just circles. Like someone had walked around us deliberately in the middle of the night. Tyler joked nervously that maybe Bigfoot wears Timberlands now. I laughed, but I couldn't shake the unease. We told ourselves it must have been another camper playing a prank, or maybe a hiker lost in the dark. We didn't see anyone else that entire day. Later that night, around 11:30, we were sitting by the fire, roasting marshmallows and talking about high school drama, when we both went quiet at the exact same time. We heard it again, the shuffling. Only this time, it was closer, way closer. I turned toward the sound and saw something move between two trees, just beyond the firelight. A tall figure, not an animal, a person, standing completely still. They were just far enough that I couldn't see their face, but I could tell they were watching us. Tyler stood up and yelled, "Hey, you lost or something?" No response. The figure didn't move, didn't flinch. I grabbed my flashlight and aimed it toward them, but the moment the beam hit the trees, they stepped behind one and disappeared. We both stood there in silence for a moment. The woods were dead quiet. No crickets, no rustling, nothing. Then we heard it again. But this time, it wasn't shuffling. It was whispering. Soft, unintelligible, like someone muttering just under their breath from somewhere behind our tent. We didn't sleep that night. We put out the fire, climbed into the tent, and zipped it all the way shut. Tyler held his pocket knife in his hand the entire time. I just stared at the nylon wall, waiting to see a shadow or hear footsteps again. Sometime around 3 a.m., I must have passed out. When I woke up, it was just starting to get light out. Fog covered the forest floor. Tyler was already awake and sitting up. He looked at me and said, "There's something outside." I didn't even want to look, but I did. Right outside the tent, no more than 10 feet away, was a pile of small rocks, perfectly stacked into a little cone. And on top of the rocks was a single item: Tyler's baseball cap, the one he had left inside the tent. He grabbed it and threw it into the woods. We broke down camp in record time. Didn't even eat. Just packed up, hiked out, and got back to the car. When we told the ranger on the way out, she didn't even seem surprised. She just said, "That's why we tell people to stick to the main trails." Apparently, a few years back, some guy went missing in those woods, left his tent, wandered off at night, never found. And ever since, hikers report weird stuff. Things being moved, strange stacks of rocks, and that whispering. She said no one's ever caught anyone, but it happens often enough that they stopped assigning people to that end of the campground. Needless to say, Tyler and I never went back, and neither of us ever figured out how someone, or something, got inside the tent to take that hat without unzipping it. This happened the summer I turned 21. It was one of those weird in-between years where you're technically an adult, but still kind of drifting through life. My buddy James invited me and 2 other friends, Ava and Devin, on a short weekend getaway to his grandparents' old summer house. It sat on this quiet lake in upstate New York, a place James had apparently gone to every year as a kid. But this was going to be the first time he'd been back in years. He said his grandparents had passed away, and the house was just sitting unused now. And since no one was renting it out, we could stay for free. It sounded like the perfect escape. No phone service, no noise, no pressure. Just fishing, campfires, and a couple of drinks under the stars. We left early Friday morning and got there around 1 p.m. The house was strange. It wasn't falling apart or anything. The paint was faded, the windows were dusty, but structurally it looked solid. Still, the moment we stepped inside, I got this weird heaviness in my chest, like when you walk into a room where someone was just arguing. Silent, but tense. We all noticed the same thing. The air felt thick, not humid, just off. James brushed it off and said it always smelled that way when it was closed up too long. The house had this creaky old staircase, wallpaper that was peeling at the corners, and old furniture covered in white sheets. It looked like a place frozen in time. After unpacking, we spent the afternoon down by the lake. We swam, grilled food, messed around with a canoe tied to the dock. The whole time, it was hard not to feel like we were being watched. Every once in a while, I'd catch Ava or Devin glancing back toward the house. No one said anything, but we were all thinking the same thing. Something was weird about that place. That night, we built a fire down by the water. James cracked open some beers, and we told ghost stories, like you're supposed to. It was chill, until the screaming started. I swear to God, we all heard it. A woman's voice, far off, screaming, not like a sudden, I stubbed my toe type of yell. This was drawn out, pained. We all froze. James stood up and said, "Probably just someone messing around on the other side of the lake." But the scream happened again, closer this time. And this time, it sounded like it came from behind the house. Devin grabbed his flashlight and scanned the woods. Nothing, just trees and blackness. No movement, no answer. The voice never called again. We went back inside. All of us were rattled, but no one wanted to be the one to say it out loud. We decided to crash early and try to sleep it off. That was a mistake. Around 2:30 a.m., I woke up to the sound of footsteps. Not creaking floorboards. Not the house settling. Actual footsteps. Slow, deliberate. Down the hallway outside the room I was sleeping in. I sat up and held my breath. The footsteps stopped right outside the door. I waited. Nothing. Then the doorknob started turning. I almost yelled, but when I rushed over and opened the door, there was no one there. Just a cold draft and an empty hallway. I checked the other rooms. James was snoring. Ava and Devin were passed out. No one had been awake. The next morning, I told them what I heard. That's when Ava finally confessed that she'd had a nightmare that night. She said she dreamt of a woman banging on the window, her face pressed up against the glass, screaming something she couldn't make out. She woke up to find the window slightly open, which again, none of us had done. We tried to laugh it off, but none of us were really in the mood to joke anymore. That afternoon, Devin and I went up into the attic looking for a fan, because the house was getting stupid hot. We didn't find a fan, but we found a mirror. It was tall and freestanding, propped up against the wall in the corner. Dusty, cracked at the bottom. Not a big deal on its own, until Devin tapped me and said, "Dude, look." There were handprints on it, smudged, like someone had pressed their palms and face against the glass from inside. I wanted to leave right then. We went back downstairs and told James, who swore he had never seen that mirror before in his life. He called his parents just to ask if they'd left anything strange in the house, but they didn't even know what he was talking about. We tried to stay one more night. The final straw came around midnight. James went outside to smoke, and about 5 minutes later, we heard him screaming. Not like a prank scream, not like he saw a bug. Real, terrified yelling. We all ran out and found him sitting in the grass, shaking. He said he was standing on the porch when he saw someone in the reflection of the window next to him. A woman. Long, wet hair, pale, wearing what looked like an old nightgown, just standing behind him. When he turned around, nothing was there. He swore it wasn't a hallucination. He even described the same face Ava had seen in her dream. We packed everything and left that night. We didn't care it was dark. Didn't care how long the drive was. We just got in the car and left. I haven't been back since. James told me later that when his family finally decided to sell the house, the real estate agent asked him if he ever heard of the woman who drowned in the lake back in 1963. Apparently, she went missing from a dock not far from the house. They never found her body, but people say her screams echo across the water during the hottest nights of the year.